You're listening to The Head Trash Show with me, Alexia Leachman, author of Clear Your Head Trash. Head Trash is the home to the head trash clearance method, which you can use to get rid of the fears, stresses and anxieties in your life. Every week I'll be sharing insights, stories and interviews to inspire you to clear your head trash so that you can find calmness, confidence and clarity in your life and work. To find out more about clearing head trash and creating a headspace, head over to clearyourheadtrash.com. And now for today's show. Hello and welcome back to the Head Trash Show. This is your host, Alexia Leachman. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, on today's podcast, I'm going to be talking all about sleep stress. Have you got sleep stress? Now, we often hear about how stress affects our sleep, but not necessarily how sleep affects our stress, and particularly how I think it creates stress. So that's why I'm calling this sleep stress, and that's what I want to talk about today. Because I think sleep can be very, very stressful, or at least it begins to get stressful when you're not having any, right? So when you're lying there awake, you're already stressed and then you can't sleep, then you're just going to get even more stress. So sleep does add to your stress if you're not careful. And I think there are ways that we can reduce this. There are ways that we can deal with sleep stress. I have used the head trash clearance method loads to get rid of the things that are affecting my ability to sleep and the way that sleep itself does affect me and the way that it stresses me out. And that's what I want to talk about today, helping you to understand what it is about sleep that could be stressing you out and how you can work on that so that you can reduce the amount of stress you get given by sleep itself. How does that sound? Are you ready? Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm lying in bed and I can't sleep, it's not long before I'm thinking things like, why am I still awake? I'm really tired. I should be asleep by now. Why can't I fall asleep? What's going on? I don't feel stressed, but yet I'm not falling asleep. Am I too hot? Am I too cold? If I don't fall asleep soon, then I'm not going to get my 7 hours. And then what's going to happen? Tomorrow's going to be a nightmare. What time is it again? And you just, these stressful thoughts just keep going round and round. And if you're not careful, then you just set yourself up for a really bad night's sleep. And so the trick is to really to nip these thoughts in the bud and to stop having this impact on your sleep. And this is why I call this sleep stress, because I really think that these thoughts that we're having specifically around our sleep can really be part of the problem. And so what we really need to do is try and eliminate them from being part of the problem, right? So what is sleep stress anyway? Let me just explain a little bit more about what I think sleep stress is. So I think of sleep stress as being the emotional tangle that we get ourselves into over not being able to fall asleep. It is all those repeated thoughts about, why am I still awake? What time is it again? And the thing is, once you do start thinking those thoughts, it does become a bit of a slippery slope. Now, if sleep is a thing for you, or if sleep is a worry for you, then I have got other episodes where I've spoken to some sleep experts all about sleep. So do look out for the episode where I spoke to Shell Hamilton and Kerry Nola, because we really do dive into sleep into quite some depth here. But the bit that we didn't talk about on those podcasts, which I want to talk about today, is the emotional aspect of sleep. And I think that's another dimension of having better sleep and be able to create a situation where you are more able to fall asleep easily and have better quality sleep. And I think that's something that we could all do with. We're never far away from a news story that's telling us how we're sleeping much less today than we used to, and how it's impacting us, and how the knock-on effects of not having enough sleep is leading to physical conditions and diseases taking root. And really, what we all need is a good night's sleep. So hopefully this podcast will help you to ultimately achieve a good night's sleep. Okay, so to help us start tackling sleep stress, I have given this a lot of thought. And I've given this a lot of thought, mainly in my bed, lying awake at night. And one thing I've come up with is I've identified 4 key themes that I believe are the main culprits of sleep stress. So I'm going to talk you through these 4 key themes. And then I'm going to finish off with some tips on how you can use the head trash clearance method, which is a method that I outline in my book, on how you can address some of these key themes that I'm sharing with you today. Of course, other methods are available, but obviously I'm going to be talking about the head trash clearance method at the end. So if you've read the book, then stick around, because then you can then go on and crack on with your sleep stress issues and go on to have a great night's sleep. Okay, so the first one then is not being able to fall asleep in the first place. So this is where you go to bed and you just simply can't fall asleep. And then the longer you lie there, the more annoyed you get by not sleeping. And so this really is one of those situations that can just easily spiral out of control. And I think this is a classic out of the 4 that I'm going to share with you, because it's something that affects us all from time to time. And I think maybe some of us get it all the time. Now, there could be a number of reasons that it is happening to you, especially if it is happening all the time. So things like chemical imbalance, or maybe you're too hot or too cold, your room's not right, or maybe you've had too much iPad action late at night, or you've watched a scary movie not long before going to bed. Any of those things, if that's part of your ritual in your life, things that you do, then you would definitely benefit from looking at your sleep ritual. Now, if you want to find out more about a sleep ritual, Kerry Nola's is a really great podcast to listen to. But also in my chat with Chell, she also talked about things like the sugar imbalance and how that could really be affecting your ability to go to sleep in terms of the nutritional stuff that's going on in your body, what you're eating for dinner, and how that might play out in terms of your ability to fall asleep. So I'm not going to be talking about that as part of this podcast, but I have spoken on those topics with other guests. Now, the one thing that I'm really clear on, and what's I think is pretty certain, is that you need to, when you're having these thoughts that are coming into your mind when you're trying to get to sleep, is that the first thing you need to do really is to just make peace with whatever is happening to you and let that go. Now, I realize that is much easier said than done, but sometimes just the simple awareness about this very thing can be enough to help you to just make that shift, which is why I just want to really make that really clear. When you're lying there awake and you can't go to sleep, is just to be okay with that rather than getting annoyed about it, because it's that getting annoyed that is actually driving the stress up. If you can lie there and accept it, you're much more able to remain calm, which is what you need to be to go back to sleep, or to go to sleep, right? Now, if you can't go to sleep, there might be a very clear reason why you can't go to sleep. Now, there could be things that are troubling you in your life that you really can't stop thinking about. You maybe have got some very real stresses going on that are really taking up a lot of headspace. And so that could be what's going on for you. But maybe if there's a consistent pattern where you're never really able to get to sleep and you're not able to identify anything obvious that's going on for you, then there could be something else going on, which might be this. And it's that you simply don't feel safe enough to fall asleep. The body is unlikely to allow you to fall asleep if it feels threatened in some way. Now, you might be listening to me going, well, I don't feel threatened, I'm in bed, I'm fine. But maybe you have an unresolved trauma from an early part of your life where maybe your life was threatened and you haven't resolved this trauma. So even though it's not taking up, you're not conscious of it today, you don't think about it regularly, it's there, your subconscious is very much aware of it. So think about times in your lives where maybe there may have been a situation like that. And perhaps it is worth seeking some help to clear that trauma out of your subconscious so that you are finally able to kind of feel safe in your own home, feel safe in your own bed, and therefore fall asleep. Now, these situations, these trauma events that may have happened in your life may have happened before you have a conscious memory of it. So you might be sort of sitting there listening to me going, well, I can't think of anything, Lex. What's going on? I don't. There's nothing there. I can't think of anything. But maybe it happened when you were a young child, and you just simply don't have a conscious recollection of that. So find somebody that you can work with. Oftentimes you can clear a trauma like this very quickly in one session, and that might be all you need. There might be more there, and so you might need more sessions. But that might be a good place to start if you're finding that you simply can't go to sleep and it's very much a permanent thing for you. You just never seem to go to sleep. You're always turning to tablets to take to help you sleep. So that might be something that's going on for you. So that's theme number one, not being able to fall asleep in the first place. And the very first thing is really just to sort of accept what is going on and to let it go. Again, easy said than done, but I'm going to talk about how you can do that later on. So don't go too far. So the second thing is noises. Now, oftentimes we don't fall asleep because there's noise going on, maybe outside the bedroom, maybe in the street. So maybe you can hear the neighbour's TV or their music playing. Maybe there are people sitting outside your house chatting really late, or there are some people coming home from a bar being very drunk in the street. Maybe there's a house alarm or somebody's car that they're just sitting out on the street waiting for somebody and they don't turn their engine off. Maybe there's cats fighting. So all of these things could be going on and you can be hearing them and getting very annoyed about these noises. But the thing is, I think it's important to bear in mind that we have a lot of emotional energy around noises and we get very annoyed by them. as opposed to noises that you hear that you don't get annoyed by. So, for example, when birds are tweeting outside or the wind's blowing, we're very unlikely to get really annoyed by the birds or by the wind. But we might get very annoyed by somebody who's leaving their car running or playing their music too loud. And so there are certain noises that do create an emotional reaction in ourselves. And I think that's the key, is if there is a noise that's creating that you're annoyed about, that you don't like, then there's an opportunity there to do some clearance work on the noise so that you're less annoyed about it. And because it's the annoyance that you have about it that's making it come into your awareness. Because you don't get annoyed by bird song, you don't often notice that the birds are singing. Whereas suddenly when you sort of take a moment, you sit back, you think, oh, the birds are singing, oh, that's lovely. And then suddenly you realize they've been tweeting the whole time and actually you didn't notice it. And that's where you want to get to when you're trying to get to sleep. You want to get to a place where the noises are happening and you're not noticing them so that you can get to sleep, right? So think about the noises that are happening, maybe make a note of them. And then later on, I'll share how you can start working on clearing the emotional energy around this. Now, you might think, that's never going to work. What is she on about? This is crazy. This is not going to work. But I have worked with somebody who had tinnitus, and it was they hated having it. They absolutely hated having it. And what I'm not suggesting here is you can get rid of tinnitus by doing your emotional clearance work. But by working on the emotional response to tinnitus, they simply didn't notice it as much in their lives. In fact, they thought it had gone, but it hadn't. They just weren't noticing the noise. And that's because we got rid of the emotional energy around it. So if somebody with tinnitus can notice a massive difference in the quality of their lives, and I think in terms of the noises that might be keeping you awake, you too could enjoy seeing a big difference in that aspect of your life. Okay, so that was number 2. So number 3. This is when you wake up in the middle of the night, or maybe when you wake up too early. And then you spend a load of time stressing about how you're running out of time to get back to sleep. So if this is happening to you, it could be down to a blood sugar drop, especially if it's happening consistently. So check out the episode that I did with Shell Hamilton, because she dives into this in a lot more detail than I'm going to right now. But if you are waking up in the middle of the night, the first thing that I would recommend that you do is to not look at a clock. Make sure that all tools that can tell you the time are well hidden, that you can't accidentally see them. You can't find out that piece of information, because that piece of information is enough to get you going and to get you annoyed and to start making you think about, putting judgments on that information and in extrapolating meaning from that. So, for example, if you wake up and it's 3 o'clock and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get up at 7. I've only got 4 hours left. This is terrible. If I don't get back to sleep now, that means I've only had 3 hours sleep, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly the mental loop starts, right? And you're not able to stop. Whereas if you don't know the time, that doesn't start and you're much more able to get back to sleep at that point. So always hide your clock. Don't have a clock that you can see in your sleep. Make sure that anything, your watch, there's no glow in the dark clocks, all of that stuff, hide it all. You do not need to know the time. As long as you have an alarm set and you can trust that it will go off, you don't need to check the time while you're in the middle of the night trying to get to sleep, because it just won't help you at all. Now, I want to go back to that earlier point I made about just accepting and letting go that you are waking up like this in the middle of the night. There is many times when I've woken up in the middle of the night and I've thought, okay, well, this is nice. It's peaceful. And I started thinking about things and thought about work projects I've had on. I've had ideas for podcast episodes and blog posts, and I'm able to really kind of think them through in a way that I've not felt pressured, or there was no effort involved. It was just kind of tumbling into my mind. I was like, oh my God, that's a good idea. And I don't get my phone out and making lots of notes, and I end up like mapping something out. And I think sometimes I've got some of my best work done in the middle of the night. And it's really helped me, because I know where there have been times when I've been at my desk trying to do the same task, for example, and it's been a real effort. I've had to make an effort with something, like, for example, the podcast episode, I might need to map out, be like, okay, what am I going to talk about? I'd have to think it through. I'd really be doing it with effort. Whereas in the middle of the night when I'm doing it, there's no effort. It's just falling into my head and I'm like, oh, I can't write it down quick enough. The thoughts, I literally can't write things down quick enough. And so now that when I wake up in the middle of the night, I feel almost grateful for the moment of peace, of quiet, of stillness. and for me to be able to think in a very different way. Because you are very close to the sleep state, you're accessing a different way of thinking. And so it can really unleash very creative ideas, things that maybe you can solve in that state that you wouldn't be able to solve in your waking state in the day. So when I wake up in the middle of the night now, I find it much easier to let go of this, oh my goodness, it's the middle of the night and I'm losing sleep, to shift to, so maybe I could do X, Y, what's going to come to me now? Maybe I could, solve this thing that I'm wrestling with. And that really helps me to, I get something done that was on my list anyway. And I'm ready to go when I get to my desk in the morning, but also I'm making good use of my time. I'm not getting stressed. And when I have done the thing, when I have finished, all these thoughts have come out, then I do get to sleep much more quickly. I'm able to get back to sleep. Whereas if I've been lying there the whole time, getting really stressed about being awake, and I check the time and I'm like, oh my goodness, and I'm debating with myself whether or not I'm going to be able to cope with this amount of sleep that I'm not going to be able to have now, then I wouldn't be able to go back so easily to sleep. I'm very, very sure of that. So, so ignore the time, appreciate that you're having a moment of stillness and calmness in the middle of the night. Maybe welcome those creative thoughts that are coming in, jot them down so that you're not stressing about forgetting them in the morning. You want to try and do things that are not going to add to your stress. So if it means you can just get a notebook out, quickly scribble stuff down, put it down, and then you think, hey, I feel really good having done that, then try it. It might be really good for you. So, but let's say you find that really hard and you are stressing about, you normally get your 7 hours and now you might not get your 7 hours. Then that can really, really, really stress you out. And this leads me on to my sort of fourth point, which is worrying about not getting your sleep allowance. So we do, again, I think thanks to the press and the articles that we see coming out saying, oh, we need 7 hours sleep, we need 8 hours sleep, we need this hour sleep. And we might have a belief that says, I only function well if I've had my 7 hours. And so if there's any threat to that 7 hours sleep, we then start going, oh, well, I'm not going to function well. It's going to be a terrible day. I'm going to look tired. I'm going to be exhausted. I won't be able to think straight. I'll be ratty all day. I'll be, and we tell ourselves how it's going to be while we're sleeping. So the subconscious is a very powerful thing, and it tends to deliver what we desire. So if we're lying in bed, giving ourselves orders saying, if I don't get my 7 hours, I will not function well. I'll be ratty. I will look terrible. I will have a really bad day. Then guess what's going to happen when you wake up without your 7 hours sleep? You're going to look really terrible. You're going to be really ratty and you're not going to function because lo and behold, your subconscious is delivering exactly what you ordered. So the first thing you need to do when you do stress about not getting your allowance is not stress about it, is not say to yourself, oh my goodness, I'm going to be ratty. Is just say to yourself, hey, tomorrow's going to be a great day. I'm going to be super focused. I'm going to have less capacity to deal with nonsense, which means I'm just going to focus on the heart of the thing that I'm working on. I'm not going to let anybody distract me because I haven't got the ability to be able to withstand that distraction. So I'm just going to be super, super focused and I'm just going to get on with what I need to do. Try it, because when I tried that for the first time, that was an absolute revelation to me, a total revelation. I realized that actually I could quite easily function on 4 hours sleep. By the time I got to the evening, I was struggling and then I needed an early night. But throughout the day, I did not suffer at all. In fact, I didn't look tired and I was doing really, really well. I just sort of ran out of steam sooner than I would have done on my full 7 hours. So it's remarkable what you can achieve by simply changing what you're saying to yourself in your head. And I would recommend that you try changing the orders that you're giving yourself while you can't sleep. I admit that now if I have 2 nights when I've had 4 hours sleep on both nights, after 2 nights, it does become a bit of a struggle. And so after 2 nights of that, I really do have to have an early night. But it's not as bad as I imagined it would be before I started changing how I was talking to myself about my lack of sleep. So do not stress about your sleep allowance. Do not worry that it's going to have this massive impact on your day, because you'll be surprised when you realize that it might not. And actually, there's no need for you to worry about that. And so if you go through the process of what I've just been talking about here is, identifying some of those noises that might be keeping you away, appreciating that you are awake in the middle of the night and maybe being grateful for the moment of different thinking that you're able to access that moment in time, then all of these things together can help you to really reduce that stress that lack of sleep can bring you while you're experiencing it. Which means that when it is happening, like, hey, I'm going to use this for what I can. And actually, tomorrow's going to be fine anyway. I'll make use of this. It means that when I get to my desk, I can get something done really quickly because I've already thought it through. And I'm going to be fine. I'll just have an early night. And suddenly, all of that stress that you were having suddenly dissipates because you're able to just manage all of that situation very, very differently because you've taken the emotion out of it. So let me talk a little bit more about how you can clear this sleep stress then. So I'm referring to clearing this using the head trash clearance method, which is outlined in my book, Clear Your Head Trash. So if you have a copy of the book, even if you haven't, then you can make some notes for when you do acquire a copy of the book. But basically, if you think about the noises, for example, think about the noises that are keeping you awake. So maybe dogs barking, my neighbour's music, then write those things down and you can work through the method using those exact things. The thing with people leaving their music playing really loud, that suggests that maybe they're being selfish. And so therefore you might be triggered by the fact that they're being selfish and that you would never do such a thing. And so if there are situations like that, then it might be that you need to work on people being selfish as well, because this is them not being selfish and how you're they respect your need for sleep. And so maybe you need to work on things like selfishness and respect because of other people's behavior and how their behavior is annoying you and stressing you when you're trying to get to sleep. So there might be some interesting things for you to add to your list if that is what's going on for you. But also think about those things that are keeping you awake at night. So if there are things that you're worried about, then definitely think about adding those to your head trash clearance list as well, because then you can clear them, then you can work on them. I used to, when I was going through a very intense period of head trash clearance, I would do a lot of clearance work last thing at night. So the things that were, if I was going to bed and I thought, oh, this is kind of worrying me, I've got this that's going on for me, then I would use that moment of time, 45 minutes before bed, to do a clearance. So not only would I be getting rid of the emotional aspect of whatever was bothering me in my life at that moment, but the act of doing clearance is actually very calming, and I would sort of get into a more sleepy state. Sometimes when you do clearance, you actually feel very tired very quickly, so it could actually help you to get to sleep just because you get exhausted. So it could be a very good thing to add to your sort of weekly evening ritual, is to plan a head trash clearance just before you go to bed to help you to get into a much calmer state so that you're more able to go to sleep. So that is how I would recommend that you help yourself to improve the quality of your sleep and get rid of sleep stress from your life. Now, if you do follow any of the things I've recommended in today's podcast episode, I would love to find out how you get on. But also, if you've got other ways that you use to help you get to sleep and improve your quality of sleep and reduce the stress that you get from lack of sleep, then I'd be interested in that too, because there's lots of ways out there, and I'm always curious to be able to share with my clients other ways that they can improve the quality of their sleep and be more emotionally in a good place when they wake up. Because when we are tired, it does really affect our ability to be more resilient. And ultimately, that's what I want to help people to be, is more emotionally resilient. So any tips, I'm more than happy to hear them. So I hope that today's episode has been useful for you. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me at clearyourheadtrash.com. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in. You've just been listening to me, Alexia Leachman, here on The Head Trash Show. If you enjoyed the show or the book, Clear Your Head Trash, I'd really appreciate you leaving a review on iTunes or Amazon. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes for more insights, interviews and inspiration for clearing your head trash and reclaiming your headspace. Until next time, bye for now.